So is it possible that an extremely sophisticated AI could come up with universal moral rules derivable in such a way that we had not previously considered or understood? In a similar way, and I realize the analogy breaks down, but in a similar way that it has advanced the game of chess or Go?
Not in a similar way, but there's a roundabout way in which the answer is yes.
Okay.
So, my thinking on AI, I'm a lover of Blade Runner. So
Me too. Yeah.
So, I see.
Like Tears in the Rain.
Yeah.
The Tannenhauser Gates. That was one of the greatest. That was improv,
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah. It was the greatest monologue in my opinion.
I completely agree. Okay, so let's go back to the
hold on. What was your question? I feel like it was on the tip of my. Oh, can AI rederive? Yeah. So I would argue that you need to have a causal understanding at this time, an evolutionary understanding of why it is we have certain moral drives, why it is that we seek out certain types of moral activities.
So by drives, you're going to give an evolutionary response to that.
We have to be careful here because we're very easily going to be accused of trying to derive an ought from an is. So David Hume is a hero, but he's often misinterpreted here. Hume did not say that because you can't derive ought from is, you therefore can't say anything about the natural drives and the natural passions that influence our beliefs about morality and about informing our conduct towards each other. Like the whole point of his book was to try to come to some understanding of how we can have a scientifically informed understanding of morality. So I would say that to answer the AI question, I would say that it has to have an empirically grounded understanding of why it is that we behave the way we do, what it is we value, what are the evolutionary reasons for us valuing these things, and from there making recommendations about what we can do to best satisfy these drives.
Yeah, the whole ought from an is thing, I never really understood why. I mean, many thinkers have given examples like John is a barber. John ought to cut your hair.
Yeah,
that's driving an ought from an is. But putting that aside for the moment. Okay, so relate the. Okay, now my mind is down the ought from an is rabbit hole. Okay, so relate. That's what often happens. So I love, one of the reasons I'm enjoying this discussion so much is because I never get an opportunity to think about this stuff. I have to think about completely idiotic shit all the time, and so it's just very nice to me to.
Happy to clear the air.
Thank you. I appreciate it's like a breath of fresh air for me to actually think about something that's interesting instead of idiotic. Okay, so relate this again back to the models that you had, the 4 models.
Yeah, so Spinoza, one of his core recommendations is we have to understand the basis of our passions. We have to understand rationally why it is we have certain emotions and certain drives. If we're going to be aligning our conduct in a fashion that satisfies our desire to live with dignity and die in peace, that is to be virtuous, to be blessed in his use of terms. And this understanding, from my point of view, is ideally achieved empirically. And if we're going to ideally achieve it empirically, we have to develop robust representations of the world, which is where the big 4 come in. They govern how we develop those representations.
Yeah, it's interesting. Lawrence Krauss, a buddy of mine. You know who Krauss is? Lawrence Krauss?
Yeah, we've chatted before.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He has argued, and I think he's right, others have argued, actually Shermer and others have argued as well, that I'm somewhat maybe this is too big of a point or a question, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on it.
Let's hear it.
That philosophy has lost its way in a number of profound regards. It's not teaching graduate students, for example, it's teaching them grad speak, and it's teaching them to go into ever more narrow areas about what Dan Dennett says matters of no abiding significance.
How many trans Chicana lesbians can dance on the head of a pin?
Yes. And it's been a mouthpiece to uphold the dominant moral orthodoxy. But even beyond all of those things, it doesn't teach people like how to read the methods of a study. It doesn't teach people why you ought to value evidence as opposed to unrestrained speculation about the origin of the universe, or a question that I've been fascinated by for a long time is the academic superstition that there can be no infinite regress, which seems to me to be silly, or silly that it's held with such tenacity. But I think the lack of grounding philosophy in empirical evidence in the most applied of ways shows me that the discipline has gone off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a time.
Or is that too harsh?
I mean, I definitely agree with the spirit of what you're saying. And I'm thinking of how people will try to counter that. And kind of the way I think about it is what you're describing, naturalism. I understand naturalism to be exactly what you're saying should be the case, which is that our speculative inquiries, the role of philosophy is to engage in the clarification of our understanding of our representations of the world. Conceptual clarification. That's philosophy's job, according to the naturalist. The philosopher listens to whatever the scientists have to say about, oh, hey, we discovered such and such thing. Then the philosopher integrates that information and thinks about, okay, what are the different ways we can understand this? How can we maybe guide empirical inquiry to be more fruitful?
That's like the way you describe. That's like philosophy when it's done best.
Yeah, yeah. But unfortunately, not everybody is a naturalist. Not everybody places method prior to ontology and epistemology, the way I do and the way naturalists generally do. The more classical way of doing things is you start with speculation about what exists or what can be known, and then from there you constrain the field of what science can be. And in a lot of cases, this also includes morally what science can be, what science is allowed to talk about if science doesn't want any trouble.
Is there anything problematic about not being a naturalist?
I mean, I'm a naturalist, so I'm very, very much inclined towards saying yes, but...
Why? What would be wrong with not being a naturalist? And what is a naturalist, first of all?
A naturalist is somebody who places methodology prior to epistemology and prior to ontology. It's basically you adopting the attitude of, I operate. And putting off to the side for the moment, metaphysicians will be like, "Oh, you just use the word I, so you shut up, you guys." I didn't come into the world with a metaphysic. I just started doing shit as a baby. I started observing things. I started, I cognitive modalities, which I was not aware of because I didn't know what evolution was at the time. I didn't know what neuroscience was at the time. They were already in operation, and they were in operation in a certain way because they evolved to be that way. They were pieced together that way physiologically in the womb. I started developing representations of the world, and from these representations, I eventually developed a philosophy. My methodology, my organization of sense data eventually led me to the creation of these speculative models.
Okay, so now we've got naturalism. What is differentiate for me naturalism with methodological naturalism?
I mean, there's some people who will say that the thing that I just described
is methodological naturalism.
Yeah, it's just methodological. I use the term interchangeably with naturalism.
Oh, do you?
There are people who will say that naturalism means that you presuppose that the only things that exist are natural, which, what does that mean? It could mean it's just physical.
That's how I use the term, by the way.
Yeah. I use it the other way. I use it methodologically.
So, okay, so if there were a supernatural realm, how would you know?
I would use the evidence of my senses.
So you'd know naturalistically?
Yeah. What I would do is I would do what Quine recommends and basically compartmentalize different ontologies. So there's the natural, there's the supernatural, there's the super duper natural, the super duper duper natural, the super pooper scooper natural, however many supernaturals you want.
Right.
And I'd put them in this category and that category. My placing them in these categories is going to be a function of certain properties that they have. But at the end of the day, my knowledge of them is acquired naturalistically.
Okay, so if your knowledge of the properties is acquired naturalistically, and there could be properties that a supernatural realm has, like I'm thinking about angels and that ontology, that your senses cannot apprehend, then you could never know those, but yet you deny the supernatural.
Yeah, I do what Hume recommends. I commit it to the flames.
Okay, so you commit it to the flames. I mean, I'm thinking of Kant and the noumenal and noumena. Like, why?
Because it makes literally no difference to my life whether angels exist or not. If I can't apprehend the consequences of their existence, either directly or indirectly, then what difference does it make whether they exist in some metaphysical realm or not?
Well, but you think about free will, right? That makes no difference to your life.
Sure.
So why would you pick and choose one thing rather than another?
Oh, are you saying that like I believe in free will, which I don't have evidence for, but
No. So I guess I was kind of trying to find a special pleading there.
Okay.
I'm not sure I could. I'm just.
Let's try to formulate it together. How would the special pleading look in the case of free will?
Well, if you think about free will and there's nothing you can do about it either way, then why think about it? But why wouldn't the same argument apply to the supernatural?
I mean, I could think about it, I could speculate it, but it doesn't have to be admitted into my ontology.
Right. In fact, it can't be admitted into your ontology in a sense, because by definition it's supernatural. You wouldn't know what you were admitting into the ontology.
No, there would have to be some consequences of its existence. This isn't to say that, there are things I can posit, right? There are things that I don't have to interact with directly. They can be embedded in theories that do have observable consequences, like your mind, for example. I don't have any direct access to your mind.
Thank God.
But I do have access.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. I do have access to the consequences of your mind.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This falls under the umbrella of my nonprofit, National Progress Alliance. Your generous donations keep us going and help fuel content like this. We truly appreciate your support. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.